Previously on the Game On podcast.
Did I read somewhere that 10 out of the 12 Victorian clubs cricket were chasing you down?
No, that was in footy.
No, that was a footy club. Sorry.
Yeah. I had a couple of interesting incidents there where in 1965 when it was going pretty well at Kyabram with Dick Clay and, there were teams coming up all the time. It was before zoning and a couple of quick stories there. Mum was out on the golf course one day. My father was killed when I was in 1963. So Jack Dyer went out on the golf course, to see Mum, which I'm sure he would have had his ears bashed out there. And then I was riding my bike out with some mates out to the local golf course with Mum's golf bag over my shoulder, and a car pulled up alongside me and asked me, was I Ross? And said, well, do you mind if I have a chat? So there were two fellows in the car, and one was Bob Davis, the coach of Geelong, and the other was Leo O'Brien, who was their secretary manager.
Yep.
And they offered me a trip to Hawaii at the end of season trip. And I'd been to Melbourne a couple of times, but Hawaii was a bit out of the imagination.
Wow.
So
that would have been pretty hard to knock back, Roscoe.
Yeah.
Yes, but so I went to my senior master at school. As I said, I didn't have dad. Anyway, I went to my senior master, who I played footy with, Ozzie Nelson, a really good man, and asked Mr. Nelson what he thought, and he said, "Well, do you want to play with them?" And I said, "No, I want to play for Melbourne." And he said, "Well, probably it'd be a good idea if you didn't go." But Geelong had a terrific team at the time with Polly Farmer, and Dennis Marshall, and Peter Walker, and all of those fellows. So Doug Wade, So, and as you said before, Melbourne were when Barassi left at the end of '64 to go and coach Carlton. That was the start of a demise of Melbourne for probably lasted the next 50 years until a couple of years ago when they won the premiership.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
And welcome back to Game On. My name's Pete, once again joined by Malcolm, and just back after a bit of a trip up to the Gold Coast there. But Roscoe a couple of weeks ago was absolutely fantastic. And, gee, isn't it amazing how clubs went about recruiting players back in the day?
There's a few stories from back in that era, and Neil Baum ending up at Richmond by going on an end-of-season trip. There are some stories around.
A trip to Hawaii back then was huge, really, when you think about it.
Fair effort to knock back just quietly.
And then, Bobby Davis basically rolling up. You'd be a little bit worried when someone rolls up to you and says, are you Ross? And, can I help you? And, we want you to come play for us. Absolutely amazing. You can imagine some of that stuff would still be happening today if there weren't so many rules and regulations around it. So
very much so.
All right,
more cloak and dagger back then.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into it.
Around the grounds.
And today, mate, what we're going to do is it's going to be a big episode. We've got a couple of weeks to catch up on, but we're going to have a look at the cricket test final, the Ashes. the SANFLW. Obviously, the State of Origin's pretty topical at the moment, but we're going to get started with the AFL. We're going to briefly brush on round 13. Obviously, I was away for that, but St Kilda defeating Sydney.
Yeah, Sydney had plenty of chances, just blew some shots for goals, and as the old cliche, kick it straight and it gets you over the line.
Absolutely. Port Adelaide defeating the Western Bulldogs.
Yeah, bit too classy. Butters, Rosie,
Yep.
Jason Horn-Francis around the ball.
We'll cover that a little bit later. Hawthorn defeating Brisbane. Shock of the round there for me.
It was the upset. But again, Brisbane haven't got a great record in Melbourne, especially against Hawthorn. I think that's Hawthorn's fifth win in a row in terms of in Melbourne against them.
Yep.
So.
Adelaide demolishing the West Coast Eagles by 122 points.
Yeah, Adelaide defeated the Witches' Hats.
They were very classy at times there.
Yeah, West Coast, though, terrible.
Absolutely.
They're arguably worse than what Fitzroy were in their last year at the moment.
Richmond defeating Fremantle.
Yeah, just took the most of their opportunities, got over the line.
Absolutely. GWS defeating North Melbourne.
Just a bit too good.
Yep. Essendon defeating Carlton.
6-16 answered the call there. Yeah, you actually had more scoring shots, yet lost convincingly. Says it all.
It does, doesn't it? Collingwood being defeated by Melbourne.
And Melbourne should have won by more. They had plenty of the ball.
Yeah, 8-18.
Yeah. To go out and side bottom, a couple of pretty important players for Collingwood, but they're still going to be well and truly around the mark.
Absolutely. All right, we move on to round 14, which was played last weekend, starting on Thursday night. Port Adelaide v Geelong. This was the one I was really looking forward to. A little bit of a test for Port Adelaide. Obviously, they're on their roll at the moment with 9, 10, 11 wins in a row. Geelong looked like they're just starting to come back to a little bit of form, and Port really, at the end of the day, 16-14, probably should have won by more as well.
Yeah, but 21 points down at quarter time and still down at half time, but it come back. It was a goal of difference at half time, and then kabang. Their midfield got on top. Butters set the example again. And
yep.
Yeah.
They're
the real deal.
Absolutely.
Really
Their ability to change lanes or change their game plan mid-season has been magnificent to watch. Their first 4 or 5 rounds, they were ranked 16th, 17th and 18th for defence and movement and ball movement. But since round 5 or 6 to obviously round 14, they've been number 1 or number 2 in those key stats. And it's showing that they just keep that ball moving forward. And it's a little bit of, I suppose I look at, say, Collingwood and Adelaide as a really good example, is that they've really relied on their young guys to do the job for them and really back them in to do the job that needs to be done.
And I might be harping on about him, but it's really since Butters went on ball. Yeah, and now those three, and especially dry grounds in September.
Yep.
Wow.
Impressive by Port Adelaide, and we'll keep watching them. Side note on this one, it's not on our run sheet today, but Kenny Hinkley's contract, are they now stuck between a rock and a hard place?
It's funny because they're really going to have to offer it to him before the finals. And then if Port bomb in the finals, God, their supporters will go troppo. It'll be enjoyable to watch, but yeah.
It's an interesting concept that, we're not going to talk until August.
Yeah.
You're starting to run the risk of if they do appoint him and, like you said, they do bomb, then... it looks bad. They don't appoint him. He goes on to win a premiership. Wow, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? All right, Brisbane v Sydney.
Yeah, Brisbane is a bit too good in the end.
A little classy.
Yeah, 13-19, they should have won pretty easy.
Are Brisbane a little bit in the mould of what the Crows are in at the moment? Is that they seem to be winning a lot at home, but just can't quite get the job done away?
I think there's certain similarities there. You can't argue with that.
Absolutely. GWS absolutely taking Fremantle to the cleaners there by 70 points.
So it's not only a loss to Fremantle, but it's hurt their percentage big time. So that's huge. And now that they play Essendon this week, back at home, massive game.
That could be the game of the round or to watch for, that's for sure. Richmond defeating St Kilda. Richmond were down by 4 or 5 goals early.
Yeah.
But Trent Cotchin's 300th game, they really rose to the occasion. But also it seems like McWalter's started to put some of the pieces back together that were during their premiership days, and it is a little bit like Back to the Future with those guys. Dusty seems to be doing all right. Cochin seems to be doing all right.
Taranto's been a big pickup.
Absolutely. And those guys now actually, the first couple of rounds they were going, well, these guys aren't really slotting into the Richmond way of playing. But as soon as the pieces sort of went back together, these guys have stepped up and done really, really well as well. Are we a little concerned with St Kilda sliding once again? The two biggest
win-loss.
Yep.
Yeah, look, they're a middle of the roadish, but they had a bit of the ball in the last quarter. Max King missed a couple, which would have put at 1 point the difference.
Yep.
So then it would have been up for grabs. So it's, again, to quote the great man John Griffin, it's a fine line between pleasure and pain.
Absolutely. Carlton defeating Gold Coast. This was a little bit, for me, it was great that Carlton won, but it was probably a little bit disappointing for the Suns in that I thought they might throw up a little bit more of a fight, and they've been up for the last 5 or 6 weeks and just didn't quite get it done.
It was a real test for them. And playing Carlton, they'd lost 6. They were there for the taking.
Yep.
I admit it. Just purely because of Gold Coast record in Melbourne, I went for Carlton.
Yep.
Broke my record saying I wouldn't tip Carlton again for a while. And that's the thing. It was a really easy win too, so very disappointing.
Yep.
And again, I'm still spewing that Adelaide was stupid enough not to go up to Darwin earlier.
Yeah, well, that could come back. Could come back to bite them a little bit later in the season. Certainly, their win against West Coast last or the week before certainly helped their percentage as far as that goes. But they really need to pinch 1 or 2 games on the road, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as we go on. And the last game of the round was the Bulldogs v North Melbourne.
Yeah, North Melbourne were competitive, got within 2 points in the last quarter, and they'd been up early, but Bulldogs again a bit too, in the end. Bulldogs are copying a pretty important injury with Liam Jones breaking his arm, so that could have some ramifications for the Dogs.
Yeah, the Bulldogs' defence seems to be the one Achilles heel for them at the moment.
And losing Jones.
Yeah, exactly right. So that's going to be an interesting watch over the next couple of weeks. Now, the buys in round 14 there were Adelaide, Collingwood, Hawthorn, Essendon, Melbourne and West Coast. Who needed the buy the most out of that group?
West Coast need about 10 more buys.
They just need to get through to the end of the season, don't they? Who comes out of that bye? Obviously, we're going to talk about this in a minute. Adelaide and Collingwood play each other. Who comes out of that a little more refreshed?
I always still think the home side. Adelaide should have beaten Collingwood here, but you'd still think Collingwood will do the job at the Jeep, and I think they'll do it pretty convincing.
Absolutely, yep. All right, let's move on to round 15. We're starting to get towards the business end of the season, and with only 9 rounds to go, the permutations and the changes that could happen within top 8 are really hinging on the next couple of rounds. So we've got Melbourne v Geelong down at GMHBA Stadium.
Huge game. Geelong are really on the edge, so it'd be a great result for Adelaide for Melbourne to beat Geelong.
Yep.
But down there, I'll go the Cats down there. You almost have to tip them every time. The only side you don't tip against them down there is GWS, ironically.
I was going to say it's not very often that Geelong lose 2 games in a row down there, and I think Melbourne are going to be with them. But I just think, like you said, the home ground advantage.
Although Dangerfield injured again, I want to see the sides.
Yep.
I really do on this one.
Yep. I might go Melbourne on this one, but only just. As I said, it's hard to tip against Geelong down it. But like you said, I totally forgot that Dangerfield is out. Playing with a broken rib and a partially collapsed lung here in Adelaide, that's, huge effort. We're going to watch that one with interest. And that's on Thursday night. Yeah. Friday, we've got St Kilda v Brisbane. Again, another
big game.
Marvel Stadium.
Where Brisbane are generally slightly better, but they've already lost to Bulldogs there this year. I think that was that Monday night game. St Kilda win-loss. Toss of the coin. Again, won't see the sides, but Marvel... St Kilda's record there is reasonable. Mm-hmm. You still suspect Brisbane probably have got the better side.
Yes,
but it's a toss of the coin with their record down there.
I think Charlie's going to light it up. He hasn't lit it up for a couple of weeks, and
he had a poor game last week.
He did, yeah. So I think faster deck at Marvel, potentially indoors. He is. That's right, and also Joey Danaher. If he gets sort of going a little bit, then I think he's going to be hard to stop. But vice versa, St Kilda
Max
can
King.
get that ball into Max King, it could make a huge difference. So, yeah, I'm going to go Brisbane just, and it's going to be a tight contest.
Yep.
All right, Sydney v West Coast at the SCG.
Sydney v the bye. Sydney.
Yeah, it's hard to
you just can't
mount a
take it.
case for the Eagles at the moment. Adam Simpson, we did talk about this a couple of weeks ago. Do they sort of give him a fortnight off or 3 weeks off and say, hey, you are our guy, look, just go away, refresh yourself a little bit, maybe the chance of a different voice in the box like we've seen with North Melbourne and like we've seen with Richmond might serve a little bit of purpose, but when you don't have the cattle, it does make it hard as well. So
But the other thing is, they're just not playing with any purpose. It's just not working hard even defensively. Like Adelaide have kicked 27 goals, and Adelaide aren't.
Yep.
Yeah, and so look.
What do you do? And I heard Nathan Buckley talk about this a couple of weeks ago, saying that sometimes their biggest achievements come from when you're in your lowest points, or they can come from your lowest points.
Well, you set just different sort of goals.
Yeah.
It's even a win a quarter. It's even just more hard ball gets, more stoppages
Yep.
than the opposition for a quarter. Just little things
And
like
they did that against Collingwood a couple of weeks ago, where they came for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and you thought, hang on, they're having a red-hot dip, but they just couldn't sustain it, and we understand why. Okay, so resetting of the goals, and Adam Simpson, do you think he'll be there at the end of the year?
I'm actually starting to suspect I don't reckon he will be. So, yeah, won't see.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Fremantle v Essendon. Now, again, we talked about this just briefly before, that this could be the game of the round,
Yeah,
or one of the games of the round.
Darcy meant to be back for Fremantle, Frederick and James Aish. James Aish still got to tick off a couple of things later in the box.
The
but
concussion protocol, yep.
yeah, let's say I might have a reasonable mail on that one,
Yep.
that we're hopeful that he does play.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Fair enough. Being at Optus, you back the Dockers probably a little bit, but Essendon always travel well over to WA. They always have.
It's a big game. Really is. It'll be a great result for Adelaide for Fremantle to get up.
Yep.
But, yeah, won't see.
Do we expect a response from Fremantle after the debacle against GWS?
You'd hope so. You'd hope just a line in the sand sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That cliche stuff, but yeah.
Get the mouth guards out on Monday and away you go. All right, the one that obviously most South Australians will be looking forward to, apart from Port Adelaide, of course, is Collingwood v Adelaide.
I reckon Port supporters will be looking forward to it because I reckon they think Adelaide are in for a pants-down job and they'd be enjoying that.
Well, but they'd also like them to win too, because then that leaves them a game clear on top.
Yeah,
So
potentially.
it's a little bit like last week, where a lot of Crow supporters were barracking for Port Adelaide to beat Geelong to keep
But
them out.
One
So,
v2 is the same thing.
yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not like you actually have the common sense of the grand final being somewhere other than the MCG,
Yeah.
but that's another topic.
Okay.
Entirely.
So we
And
obviously
the extended VFL.
correct. So we obviously see Collingwood as
too
probably favourites there. I think the Crows are going to put up a fight for a little bit, but I think it's going to be the same old from Collingwood, that they're just going to get going, and they're hard to stop at the MCG. It's almost like the Richmond of the last couple of years, where they're always just hard to beat. And to finish off the round, the Suns v Hawthorn down at Heritage Bank Stadium in Queensland.
Yeah, you'd expect Gold Coast to rebound, but Hawthorn are playing pretty good footy at the moment.
Well, they're
They've
definitely
been,
the best of the bottom four.
Apart from the game here against Port,
Mm-hmm.
but again, Sicily now out, who is their barometer. Now, he misses the next three. I think he's pretty unlucky on that one.
Yep.
There's some of those, where I've been very critical.
Yes.
And as I've said, I still believe Rory Laird was guilty. I thought that was a poor decision.
Yep.
I thought, so I'll go Gold Coast purely. Again, Sicily out. The next three is massive.
More Sicily has been suspended for almost more games than he's played this year. It's an unusual statistic for one player in one club.
And a captain.
And a captain as well. And we have talked about it previously that, a couple of them were silly tackles. This one here seemed to be a bit more lineable. And this is the one he got clipped on the most. So interesting. All right, and buys obviously to Carlton, North Melbourne, Port Adelaide, the Bulldogs, the Giants and Richmond. Who out of those do you think needed the buy the most?
Well, Carlton,
Yes.
had one last game, or enough that they've gone through to win, have a bit more relaxing bit. I reckon that could help the Blues.
I'm shaking my head in agreement, mate. That was the one out of that group that I picked as the team that needed the bye the most, just to stop everything that was going on. They had the win of. If they'd lost, holy moly, the next 2 weeks would have been unbelievable. But just gives them that little bit of breathing space. They can reset and reload, and there are 9 games to go, so anything can happen. My big one is probably Port Adelaide. They're on such a roll that you don't want to stop. That's the big one. You just want to keep playing because they're on fire a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see.
And then their next game is Essendon away. So, it is interesting.
It'll be interesting to see whether that does break them down a little bit or, really keeps them going and refreshes them for the second half of the season or the back third of the season. All right, mate, we move on to the SANFL. Maybe I should go away more often, mate. We'll talk about this one in a minute. Round 9, we'll quickly breeze over this one here. Adelaide defeating Woodville West Torrens.
Yeah, reasonably close, but Adelaide's class towards the end at Adelaide Oval. And, I find it a little strange. SANFL clubs agreeing to play Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. They train there.
Yep.
I get that their players would like the experience to have a kick and a catch on Adelaide Oval. But for mine, Woodville West Torrens would have been far better off playing that game at Oval Avenue.
Absolutely. The surprise of the round for me was West Adelaide defeating North Adelaide. Reasonably convincingly too, 4 goals.
The Roosters are struggling. Like that's probably for me is the surprise. I thought they were the team to beat this year, and they're struggling. So Westie's been better, way better than expected. So well done to Adam Hartlett on that one.
Absolutely. Port Adelaide defeating the Bulldogs, Central Districts.
Yeah, again that bit where you've got your AFL players back, and they had. And even like as a Norwood man on Friday night when Rioli pulled out, you beauty, Narkle now doesn't play.
Yes,
it's such a
changes everything, doesn't it? Yeah. The big one for me while I was away, I had to double check this score considering how well Sturt have been going. Glenelg,
incredible,
beating them by 105 points.
Yeah, but let's go to the real thing about that game. 7,500 people at Glenelg. Glenelg have set the template for every other team. They ticked every box.
Yep.
They had something. They had a lot of stuff for the kids.
Yep.
Tick. Kids want to go, mum and dad. They did the MMD stuff, past Glenelg players being dunked.
Yep.
Past players, Keith Coleman leads that troop with Peter Carey and Rexy Voigt. They do that very well, Glenelg.
Yep.
Massive.
Hats off to them.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
And did they not repay the faith for coming and playing in front of a reasonably big crowd down at Glenelg Oval?
It was just a bizarre result. We were checking the scores down at Noarlunga, and it was astonishing.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, I was checking the scores while I was up on the Gold Coast there, and I just went, hang on, Monday football didn't agree with Sturt, that's for sure, but certainly agreed with Glenelg. And the other one that I was checking while I was away there, and fingers crossed, toes crossed, legs crossed, eyes crossed, that Norwood would finally get a win on the board, and sure enough, they did.
Oh, look, and at quarter time, 1 goal each, and Norwood had the use of a really strong breeze.
Yep.
And we were going, no, nothing's changed. And then Norwood played their best quarter of the footy for the year in the second quarter.
Yep.
Really ran it.
Set the
ran
game
through
up.
the lines,
Yep.
kicked low. Actually, Panos got involved a bit.
Yep.
And just a bit more nous and run. And, up at half-time, good third quarter. While South came right back, and it got a bit scary there in the last quarter.
Yep.
Yeah, South did get 4 injuries in the game against North, and with a couple of South officials for the game, one of them said, hey, we're no certainties today with who's coming in and that. So, look, as an Ord supporter, and
it's good to break the duck.
Yeah, hats off to Brad Harris. I love the line that he could finally put his premiership scarf from last year out the window, that he took till round whatever to open it.
Yeah.
So,
No, fair enough. And, as Nord supporters, we were over the moon that we finally broke the duck. And we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about this week's round.
But now, mind you,
yes,
as a Redback supporter, 1 for 8, that's quite successful. I'd take that. We're shotgunning the lunch break with that score.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about the cricket a little bit later on as well. All right, we move on to round number 10. Central's defeating Woodville. Again, there's a couple of little surprises in here while I was away that it's just crazy.
At the Ponderosa, though,
Yeah.
they are hard to beat out there. And that game was on TV, so I will be honest, I did have a look at that in the background. I was at Uni Oval.
Yep.
And, yeah, they ran it, and they were in control of the game, really, right from probably halfway through the second quarter.
Yep.
So, yeah, good result by the
You're
Dogs.
right. They do play the Elizabeth Oval very, very well. Sturt in a tight tussle with North Adelaide. That was touch and go for a while until late in the game, but again, 9-13, certainly dominating the forward 50 entries, but just not converting. Probably could have won by a couple more goals.
Yeah, just probably, again, a little bit more polished and at home. Sturt have got a pretty good record at home as well. Well, they've got a good record everywhere this year, apart from one game at the Bay. But
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the third game of round 10, Norwood defeating Port Adelaide. Obviously, keen interest in this one here. Traditional rivals, Norwood Port at the parade. It was a televised game. So it was all on the line, really. And Norwood,
the Gallagher-Williams Cup,
yes.
if we win, is still the most important trophy in world sport. If we lose, it's no bugger. It's only that AFL mob, sort of thing. So, yeah, a bit of fun there.
Absolutely. And the way that all works out is obviously on win. If you win 2, you take it.
Well,
if it's 1-1, it goes on the
margin.
That's right.
And this year was actually, it's the second time it's ever happened.
A dead draw.
It was the dead draw, but because Norwood are the holders from last year, well, we're claiming that's good enough.
Absolutely.
So, yes. And look, I will say, this game did have a bit of a personal bit in the end. Liam Robinson, son of Mark, Norwood team manager, one of my best mates. Mm-hmm. Liam's a twin, and so I actually used to go out and help Mark look after the twins right from a few weeks old.
Yep.
So go back a long way. Got the Robinsons out to uni. So Liam is actually the first player to play league football after being a top-up player from Adelaide Uni.
Yep.
And kicked the winning goal. And, yeah, so pretty pumped. So obviously involvement with Liam. And look,
mate, I could hear on the scoreboard there was a bit of ruckus over near the scoreboard.
Yeah, it might have been. The scoreboard might have got a bit loud with Liam kick that goal.
Absolutely.
And look, Liam went through a few personal things last week, and look, Liam helped, and yeah, he's a great kid.
Yep.
And yeah, just wrapped.
Obviously, Nord kicking 8 goals, 12. Again, bad kicking can cost you games, but on this occasion they held their nerve, and certainly that early goal in the last quarter really gave them that breathing space to just get the game on their terms.
Liam marked, kicked to the perfect spot to Luke Sermon, and Luke Sermon had a really good game. He looked dangerous all day.
Agreed.
Look, the other thing, I've got to be honest, I'm not convinced that Tom Jonas's body will come back. He's been a warrior to get through 200 games. He's not that tall as a key defender, so he's played above his height and weight for all those years, and I really reckon his body's catching up. I hope I'm wrong.
Yep.
And it was good to catch up with Tom after the game, and all the best. But yeah, he's just not getting his legs just aren't getting him to where his body wants to go.
And that happens at this time of their career, and he's been a magnificent servant. Hate to say it for the Port Adelaide Football Club or the Port Adelaide Power Footy Club. And obviously you could just see he's almost half a step behind on the weekend on occasion.
And where it got said that Orazio Fantasia came off, was rested, I think my mail on some hamstring trouble might turn out to be more correct.
Okay.
Leave it at that one.
I'm glad you mentioned Orazio. Obviously, was playing some brilliant footy there for a little while there in the middle of the second and third quarter, and like you said, him coming off was
it's pretty crucial,
precautionary, but obviously hadn't played very much, and he'd played 3 games back in the SANFL and probably pushing for a little bit of AFL recall. I think
basically his body had got him through 1 or 2 more. They would pick him.
Yep.
His just body just
keeps breaking.
Yeah, unfortunately. For razzle dazzle.
Is it a thing that he may end up playing a bit more SANFL over the next year or so?
Oh, look, I think at the moment his career's on a tightrope.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
He's sitting there. Port at the moment, he didn't play at all last year.
Yep. They're
going to go, hang on, we can't really offer him another contract at the moment. So he's got a few pretty crucial weeks, and if it's now a hamstring trouble after groin, a calf.
He's in that triangle of Narkle, Rioli and Fantasia, they're all fighting for that one spot, aren't they?
And
Evans,
you know,
and he played brilliantly too, didn't he?
To bring in Narkle, I think was almost insurance about Orazio's body.
Yep.
You know, that to me was smacked of that choice in the mid-season draft.
Yep.
Comes in, played well against Geelong.
Yep.
So it puts Orazio back down the
order a little bit.
Pecking order, and his body's just, struggling as well.
All right, and to finish off round 10, we've got West Adelaide v Glenelg this Saturday.
Yeah.
It's amazing how this has been a split round.
Yeah, at Hisense Arena.
Hisense Arena, yep.
Yes, I admit I've got to always make sure I get my names of the ovals correct.
Yep.
We get told that as commentators.
Yes, absolutely.
You tip Glenelg, but Westies have been competitive at home. I admit I'm tempted to go and have a look at that one on Saturday. I'm just not sure where I'll end up yet.
Absolutely. All right, we move on to round 11, which will be the following Saturday.
Yep.
We might just skim through this very, very quickly, and we'll talk about it a little bit more next week. Eagles v Panthers.
Toss of the coin.
Big game, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a big game. At Oval Avenue, where the pasties are spicier, Woodville West Torrens.
Port Adelaide v West Adelaide.
Again, I'd like to see what Port's AFL situation
happens,
and all that is. They're away next week, which means they take another player.
Yep.
So toss the coin, but you probably do
Favour Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
Glenelg v the Bulldogs.
At Glenelg.
Stratorama Stadium.
Stratorama. The Bays.
North Adelaide v Adelaide.
I'll go Adelaide.
I think Adelaide as well. And probably the match of the round for me is Sturt v Norwood, only because Norwood absolutely desperate. And they're only 2 games out of the 5.
Yeah,
that's
crazy.
the ridiculous part about this whole thing.
Yeah, it is crazy. So, look, you've got a tip Sturt. That's logical from the head. But obviously, at least we know that the correct song will get sung after the game either way.
It's a grand old flag, no matter what. All right, mate, we move on to the tennis. We briefly talked about a couple of weeks ago the French Open. It obviously concluded. We got the semi-final of Alcaraz and Djokovic, and it was sort of a bit of a fizzer in the end, wasn't it?
Djokovic is just too good at the moment.
Absolutely. And obviously Djokovic going on to play Casper Ruud in the final. And once again, the cream rises to the top.
Yeah, I think that's just the best way to put it.
And, Rudd's actually had pretty good couple of years on clay, making a couple of finals. And look who he's run into. He's run into Nadal and he's run into Djokovic. You can't do anything more, can you?
And your money's got to be on Djokovic at Wimbledon.
Absolutely. And in the women's, Swiatek defeating Mayer in the final. I think I'll double check that one before we put this one to air, actually. So Swiatek winning her Grand Slam final there at the French Open, and obviously looking forward to Wimbledon coming up.
She was top seed as well, wasn't she?
She was top seed,
so it's actually only a female to actually. It doesn't always happen because, especially in the last few years, with Serena Williams, they hadn't played enough tennis.
Yes,
quite often
she wasn't really getting
seed.
a seeding or was getting a wild card into the event.
Still quite often the person to beat.
Yep.
So,
and obviously Swiatek taking over the world number one from Barty when she walked away. So, it's good for her to continue that form. And the women's game is so open. Anything can happen. Yes, she might be the favourite at Wimbledon, but there's probably half a dozen you could throw in there, and it does make it interesting.
Yeah, plenty of coin tossing on that one.
Absolutely. All right, mate, we'll take a quick break. When we come back after the break, we're going to have a look at the cricket in some depth, mate.
Yep.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
All right, mate, we jump into the cricket. We'll start off with the Test final. Obviously, our last episode came out just before the Test final started. Australia v India, some interesting by-play results within that game.
Yeah, look, and it was evenly poised, but then the Smith-Head partnership really just took the game away from India, so they were playing catch-up from then on. India not picking Ashwin was strange.
Yep.
That hurt them in the end. And again, their batters just didn't quite do enough, really. And all the hoo-ha of the last day, I'm thinking, hey, hang on.
Yes.
Chasing 440, you guys. Calm down a bit. Yeah, a couple of wickets early, and it was game over.
Yep. So Australia, first innings, all out for 469. Travis Head, obviously leading the way there with 163. Geez, he's continuing his great form, isn't he?
Touch a bit of wood for tonight, though, more importantly.
Absolutely. Obviously, Smith on 121. Usman Khawaja out for a duck in the first innings. Interesting that Aussie didn't sort of start very well, but obviously we'll talk about this a little bit later. It's starting to come into his own. Warner with a pretty serviceable 43. And Alex Carey, again, the Adelaide boys doing their job with a pretty handy 48.
Yes, South Australia carrying Australian cricket yet again. Yeah.
Geez, we'd love to have them in the Redbacks right now, wouldn't we? All right, India all out from 296 in their first innings. Jadeja obviously with 48, Rahane with 89, but other than that, really struggling to put some partnerships together.
Yeah, and Nathan Lyon just mopping up, did his job. Yeah, just Australia in the end just a bit, I think, and Pant being injured for India was vital. Pant and Bumrah being injured for India is vital. That certainly took away a lot of their power in terms of their... he was probably the batter who could come and take the game away, and he's got a good record against Australia for doing that.
Yep.
So there was that side of things. And Boland contributing well. So Australia a bit too good.
Absolutely, and obviously the second innings, Australia declared 8 for 270. Carey 66 not out as the highest scorer. Impressive form actually by Carey and Head. Obviously in the Test final. Yep. Obviously considering Labuschagne and Smith had spent some time obviously playing some county cricket over there.
It was interesting that Alex made the point thanking and really hammering the point of how good the Adelaide ground staff have been up to get wickets up and playable down at Carrum Rolton. Mm-hmm. So he actually practiced on turf and all that down there a fair bit before he went to England, and he made the point that really helped. So
okay,
and a couple of the Australian women's players that also made really thanking and saying. Pretty incredible to have turf wickets at this time of the year here in Adelaide.
That's a fantastic achievement, not only for the Adelaide Oval staff, but a bit of forward thinking going. If we can get these guys to practice on something reasonably similar, and like you said, at this time of the year as well.
Bit soft, doing a bit, English conditions. So, good thinking.
That is very good thinking, and just that takes me back a little bit to Australia for the lawn bowls in the Commonwealth Games. They actually went up to Mount Lawley, I think it was, up in Queensland there, and they prepared a English-style green, and it paid dividends for them because, around here, you're on 15, 16, 17, 18 second greens. Over there, you're on 12 second greens. It makes a huge difference. So, unbelievable. And then, obviously, Australia bowling India out for 234 to win the World Test final.
And pretty convincingly in the end.
Absolutely. Well done to Australia, and it's sort of set them up for what we're going to talk about now, the Ashes, mate.
Yeah, the real cricket. Look, I think in England, for mine... They're aggressive, and so Australia struggled a little bit.
Let's talk about Bazball.
Yep.
A lot of people are obviously talking about it. They're sort of getting a bit of a sense that it's a T20 style coming into Test cricket, and it's not what people are used to.
No, well, Crawley's hit the first ball of the Test match with a cover drive, smashed it for 4. That just doesn't generally happen. That's normally a let it go. Forward defence at the most.
See what it's doing, yep.
So, it is different, and Australia probably struggled a little bit and didn't get enough balls in the area for enough dot balls.
Yes.
And so it put pressure back on, and Cummings probably struggled a little bit as captain. So, it was interesting. Look, for mine, bizarre declaration by England.
Well, this is what I was going to get to.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
England just declaring 8 for 393. If you have a look at the majority of their batsmen, looking at the scores, obviously Joe Root 118 not out.
But that's the crucial bit for me. He was not out.
Yes.
Declaring when Root was not out. If it had been Robinson and Broad, and Anderson to come,
yep.
I'd go, okay, I can get that. if you get a wicket overnight, it's a great call, but not with Root not out.
Yep.
I thought it was ridiculous. And look, geez, I hope it hurts them in the end.
Is it a flaw in the Bazball type of format that they were overconfident that they could bowl Australia out reasonably close to what they had scored, and the time limit that Australia would take to get to it? It's a reversal of roles a little bit, where England are on the attack and Australia are actually the passive party in this game.
I just think it's strange.
Absolutely crazy. And then also Nathan Lyon bowling spinners at the 10 over mark of the first day of the test.
Well, you're sitting there in the end. Maybe they could have played Murphy as well. It was almost an Indian more style wicket. So it was crazy.
Absolutely. Obviously, as we said, Joe Root high scoring in that first innings. Australia, their first dig all out for 386. The big news was probably Usman Khawaja, 141. Typical innings there, 321 balls, hitting 14 fours. He ended up hitting 3 sixes as well, which, again, Test cricket, you don't necessarily see too many sixes.
It's just a different thing. And look, I was more stunned with Brute last night that the first ball of the day is try to reverse sweep. Geez, I wish that had been on the stumps.
Yep.
Look, I get playing aggressively and that, but for mine,
there's a time and a place for it.
Your reverse sweep against a quick early, or the ramp. Sorry, it's more a ramp than a reverse sweep.
Yep.
I just shook my head a bit in disbelief.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Warner failing with the bat again with 9. Broad seems to be his bunny at the moment.
He just tried to hit it too hard. Yeah. Terrible shot.
Labuschagne out for a duck.
Poor shot.
Big surprise, but you're right, it was a poor shot. Steve Smith, 16, and then Travis Head with a very timely 50 runs again.
Yeah, and Travis threw it away. His bottom hand came in, and so it went to mid-wicket instead of going down straight.
Yep.
Straight down the ground where it should have gone. That was a bit disappointing. Alex Carey batted really well.
I was going to say Cameron Green with 38, and then Alex Carey with another 66. It seems to be his number at the moment.
Yeah, and look, Besto missed Green stumped it for North, then he dropped Alex as well. Yeah, play a keeper, not a batsman who tries to keep.
Yep.
Besto and Wade are my classic comparisons there. Neither of them were keepers.
Yep.
Play the keeper they've got, folks. Play him.
I don't think that they will play him in the second innings. You're right. A couple of second tests. Sorry. You're right. Catches win matches really at the end of the day, and he missed a couple of howlers really at the end of the day.
I hope he drops a couple tonight.
It'd be very nice. All right, and Pat Cummins with a very timely 38 as well. So yes, Australia in reasonably good position at the moment. Bowling well, they did bowl England out for 273, and like you said, the key wicket there was Joe Root.
And England got away a little bit late. Look, there was also we recorded an interview last night.
We did.
It was on the way home.
Yes,
Bairstow got given out, and then on the review it got overturned, and I still shook my head with that. And then the next ball. Mm-hmm. Australia didn't review because they were down to their last review, and that was going to smash me. It was a poor umpiring decision.
Yep. I think they got worried out of that because I did actually watch that one as it was happening, going, they've got him, and then they didn't get him, and then the next ball was an absolute perler from Boland. Should have had him, and they sort of got scared out of the decision because of what happened in the last call.
Still my pet hate. They get rid of the players reviewing it. You've got the third umpire, pushes the button. No, you've made a mistake. Get on with the game. I still think it's garbage.
Quite a few of the England players getting off to a bit of a start there. 7 for Crawley, Root 46, Brook at 46, Stokes at 43, Bairstow at 20. So
first time Joe Root's ever been stumped too.
Yes, I was going to say, I did read that statistic this morning.
And Alex Carey's first day, and he's got 3 in the Test match, so it's a bit an unusual stat as well.
Again, it's the whole Bazball and then going after. And then we go to Australia, 3 for 107 with both Warner, Labuschagne and Smith all sitting back in the sheds, mate.
We were none for 60. We'd have got away, and then those 3 wickets for mine have well and truly tipped the game England's way. My money's on England. The weather forecast tonight's not great.
No, day 5 with it going to be a little bit wet.
And the big thing there, it means therefore when they are playing, that it's going to be cloudy. Good luck against Anderson and Broad in that. It's where England, it's almost like you need to watch the weather forecast, what you're going to do and that. So it is crazy. England have had the luck in that regard this game, bowling in better conditions.
Yep.
Australia really only had that little spell and they got Crawley and Duckett out within, and then Root got given Australia reviewed, and watching that, it was a poor review.
Yep.
Just wish he nicked it.
Yep.
So at the moment, my money's on England.
Okay.
And obviously, I hope I'm wrong, and we're going to need Khawaja to hang around.
I was going to say, Khawaja's still at the crease, 34 not out.
Now, Boland, he's been used as a night watchman. It hasn't come off yet in Test cricket. A couple of times he's tried it, he's got out pretty quick the next day.
Mm-hmm.
He did have a Shield game in Perth where he batted for a couple of hours. So, geez, it'd be great if that somehow happened tonight. Even if he eked out a 30, and he's on 13 at the moment.
And Khawaja gets to a 70 or 80, and then Boland gets out, and then Head comes in. I just hope Head comes in with the right mindset of being a little bit selective. I know he can be aggressive.
Can be rash. Yeah, exactly. Look, let's just wait and see.
Yep.
But you can't query Travis over his consistency the last couple of years. So
I hope that he either gets in the right mindset and plays the way that he wants to play and really puts England on the back foot. But it's just that one rash decision that. But
he's also due in this sort of weather to get a good one early, and he's probably in good enough form at the moment that he'll nick it.
Yeah,
so
yeah, absolutely.
Wait and see.
But then you've got Cameron Green, Alex Carey, and Pat Cummings to come. Carey's in some pretty good form too, so it is in the balance this game.
Well, it is.
I mean, Australia need 174 to win.
The money is, for mine, England is slight. It's 60-40 England's way at the moment.
Yep.
The weather, for me, probably makes it more 70-30.
Absolutely. I think I'd have to agree with you a little bit on that one there, but 174, again, it's that awkward total, isn't it? And if you do get a bit of rain on the early parts of day 5, it could be very, very interesting to see what happens.
Put it this way, there's going to be a lack of Peter sleep again tonight.
Fair enough. All right, mate, we move on to the SANFLW. What a grand final we witnessed. I was away, but I, again, was keeping a bit of an eye on it.
I was there.
South Adelaide looked like they were in control, and from the clouds, Central Districts come and win their first SANFLW premiership.
Yeah, I was there. Look, South were well on top, and they should have been further in front. And they probably did get a little bit defensively.
Yep.
But they certainly didn't have much luck in other regards either.
There was a couple of umpiring decisions late in that fourth quarter that was a little bit questionable. Yeah. Again, can't blame the umpires. They're in the wrong spots or didn't quite see it a certain way. But the Central's players were putting themselves in positions to earn a free kick in some way, shape, or form.
The last free kick, personally, as an umpire, was too technical.
Yep.
I wouldn't have paid it.
Yep.
And then the 25. Now, the umpire technically is correct on this, but he, for mine, was reactive. I would have loved the umpire there to be proactive.
Yep.
Blowing the whistle, right, you get out, you're here, and just take over like a traffic cop in that situation. Yep. And didn't, and then the 25's paid. It's not a great way for the game to finish. So.
No.
But look, let's go to the more the point. There was over 3,000 people there. It was a fantastic atmosphere.
Yes.
And the Central's chant got out because there was a lot of dog support there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great atmosphere, and well done to North Adelaide on the day as well, to Craig Burton and the North staff and crowd. It was a fantastic atmosphere. Congratulations to Ben Hunt and the Central's the Central's bit. And Shelby Smith, in her speech, pointed out that she did something that her illustrious father Greg never managed to do for the Dogs, so that was quite funny as well. It's okay. I did get Greg for a book while he was on the ground.
You've done well, mate.
Yes.
Obviously, congratulations, like you said, to Centrals. Really coming from the clouds a little bit, and had never been in a final series, and they end up taking away a grand final win. Congratulations to Ben Hunt, and well done to Centrals. I mean, they've probably been starved of a bit of success since their sort of 10, 11-year run with their men's league side, and congratulations to the SANFLW
and
or the
interestingly
SANFL.
enough, the Dogs on their junior or their reserves are up around the mark this year as well. their 18s are going to play finals the first time since 2008. And their 16s are there as well. So it's the Dogs at the moment, as a club overall, they're on the right path.
I did actually have a bit of a look at that before we recorded this as well, and just to see where everyone was at. And, obviously Norwood's probably the one that I'm going to look at the most. Yeah. But you're right, I did actually see that Centrals are on the move at the moment. And well done to Centrals, considering there was a lot of talk for the last 2 years that, things aren't going well. They're sort of going backwards. They lose Laird as their coach. Things aren't quite clicking, and all of a sudden now they're in contention.
And at 18s level, they've got a few kids there who won't. There'll be a couple who are a big chance to get drafted.
Yep.
But if they can get those kids on the right path and keep them wanting to play league footy, I think there's 5 or 6 from that side, because obviously I'm involved watching and commentating 18s.
Yes.
The 18s comp, so I probably had a bit more of an interest in it than most. I think they've got 5 or 6 who can play good league footballers for the Dogs.
Absolutely. Well, we watched that one with interest. Yeah. And well done again, like I was just saying, the SANFL to have just over 3,000, almost 3,500 at Prospect is a huge tick for the SANFLW.
Oh, it was massive. Like I got there a little bit later than what I'd intended to.
Trying to find a car park.
And it was. I ended up parking halfway to Melbourne on the other side, of the road of Main North Road. And it was. And I'd been to the league game the previous week there at Prospect. And I'm going, hey, I'm parking further away here than what I was last week. It's going to be interesting to see what the crowd size is. And, sure enough, it was that.
Fantastic. And to round out our SANFLW season, Piper Window wins the SANFLW Best and Fairest.
She's going to be a very good AFLW player as well, young Piper. So, obviously, the Window link with Gary Window there. She's a class. She's all class. So there's a few from the SANFLW this year.
Could make the move.
Will end up getting picked up.
Obviously, the third Bays player to win the best and fairest for the SANFLW. So there's certainly a bit of a factory down at Glenelg there as far as SANFLW goes. Yeah,
look, I was probably a little bit surprised that Jess Edwards from North Adelaide didn't poll better. But Piper's an outstanding talent, and full congratulations. She certainly deserved honour. Don't get me wrong. I'm not
absolutely.
Saying I just thought Jess might have polled a bit more.
Jess finished third in the count. Zoe Venning from West Adelaide finished second, and obviously Piper finishing first.
Zoe very consistent for the Bloods too. Just contributes every game.
Absolutely. Zoe bursting out of the blocks to poll 13 votes in her opening 6 games. That's pretty handy. It's a bit like Zach Butters at the moment and what he's doing. He's had a bit of a purple patch and just seems to be getting everything.
I'd commentated Westies a couple of times in that round, and she was certainly the standout. And just as I said, it was more her consistency. It wasn't really so much a brilliant thing here or there. Just consistently at the ball, get into the spot. And, a really good team person.
Yes.
Yeah, very impressive.
And obviously each team basically having a player within the top 10 of the votes. So that's a pretty good effort too. That the votes are being shared around. Games have been pretty close this year, and as we saw, there was a couple that went Nord's way late. It didn't go their way early on as well. So
probably another vital point too there for people maybe listening in. The SANFL W wasn't free entry for the grand final, and to still get through, it was $10 ahead. Okay, it wasn't your 20 at a league game, but still at $10 ahead to get the 3,000 there. I think it's fantastic. So congratulations.
I certainly hope that they're putting that money back into the SANFLW and the facilities and the players, which I'm sure they would be as well. All right, mate, we're going to move on to the State of Origin. What do we got? 21st, that'll be Wednesday, I reckon, this week. Suncorp Stadium, Queensland, a chance to take the series and take the win in the State of Origin once again.
You've probably got to tip them up there too.
And they'd want to be winning it at their home venue, Suncorp Stadium there. They go Cocoa Bananas for their State of Origin in Queensland, and by rights they should, considering they've been playing some fantastic State of Origin footy, and to finally get one at home and win it at home would be a great reward for them. New South Wales imploding a little bit over the last couple of weeks. The selection's been quite interesting as well.
And it's been debated, and
Absolutely.
heated answers back and forth, not banter stuff, a bit more.
No, a bit more personal
Yeah,
at times as well. A couple of
been
brothers going toe to toe
yeah.
on live television and live radio. It's great that there's such passion with it, but you're really exposing a little bit of a weakness to your opposition that if they get on top of you, they're just going to keep pounding and pounding and pounding, and they'll let you know about it. And especially in a State of Origin series, expect some fire. So should be very interesting. All right, mate, we're going to move on. Coming up today, we've got David Palm for our Past Players, Past Legends segment. We did record this a week or two ago before I left for Queensland, and he was great enough to give us our time all the way from WA.
Yeah, it was a big night, wasn't it?
It was a big night.
So we only were on air, effectively on air for nearly 5 hours, 4.5 hours that night. Look, Palmy to David Palm, go back a long way. His dad and my dad, his dad, the late Jim, and his mum, the late Lorraine, very good family friends and that. So grew up together. Also having Andrew, his youngest brother, with some intellectual difficulty there and that. So it's not only footy in the interview, so covers a bit there on that side of things. And
we talk about, obviously, him playing at Norwood. We talk about him playing at Richmond, West Perth. So there's a little bit of flavour for everybody there. We're covering 3 states now.
And also meeting his lovely, Michelle's a ripper, meeting Michelle at a West Perth Footy Club blind date night. That for mine was right
Absolutely. Listen in, and we might even take that excerpt there and put that in our previously on for next week, because it's an absolute beauty. So keep listening, and David Palm, we thank him once again, and we'll be back after the break.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe. Past players, past legends, past legends.
We welcome David Palm aboard. Now, Palmy's a little bit different because we're a family friend, so we go back right well before Palmy played league footy. But David played 65 games for Norwood, 76 to 79, 79 goals, 91 games for West Perth, 80 to 82, and then going back to Perth after his career at Richmond, 1990 and 91, 91 games, 50, and for Richmond, where he played under 8 million coaches, and we'll certainly cover all of that. 83 to 88, 104 games, 38 goals, so 260 senior games, and also a season at Springvale as well. So nearly the 300 games. Palmy, welcome aboard, mate.
Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks for joining us, mate. Well, we must start where it all started, was in your juniors, mate. Where did you play for your junior footy?
I was probably started off at when Norwood High was school, and then I played with junior footy at Kenzie Gardens.
He had 26 goals in one game, I reckon, for Kenzie Gardens, wasn't it, Palmy?
Oh,
around there.
It was around that, but it's extended out to about 35 now over the years.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah, so you can see like may have dominated a bit.
Is that like the fish that got away? It was, started out at 20 centimetres and now has ended up at 60.
So no, McGill primary first, Palmy, and that side of things, obviously. Trying to think, is any primary school representative sides, or mainly at Norwood High?
It's mainly at Norwood High. So McGill primary was the old Johnny Hancock was the coach there, but no, it was probably more the high school where you got into a little bit age groups and then progressed to Kenzie Gardens, and then on from there.
And at Norwood High, so David was year 12 when I was in first year, and Norwood High won the state championship, and in that we beat Henley, and Norwood High, in that Norwood High side was Robert Dolan, who didn't get a league game at Norwood and then rucked against Norwood and played in 3 Port Flags. But Dolan, Craig, Palm, Derrington, Michael Holliday, David Simon. So it was a fair side. Wow. And Ray Laddams got best on ground medal. That's father of Chris Laddams and a Gazer legend around the traps. So it was a bloody strong side. Turbs, when Greg Turnbull turned up at school, had a game that might have been in terms of strength in life and that side of things. But, yeah, it was fair Norwood High side, Palmy.
It was. I think Robert Hall, whose brother John played there as well. So be reminisced me. There was a guy called Tim Morgan who also played there. Was a good mate of Darrow's and myself. So it was a very good side. David Simons, I think.
Yes, Simo played. Yep, halfback flank.
Yeah. So we're a pretty strong side. So and Gillis Plains, I remember. I think they were our nemesis. I think because the Zubnik brothers played for Gillis Plains.
Yeah. Yep.
Back in those days. So it was always an interesting game.
And then going on to your obviously after school there, representing at Norwood at the under-17, under-19 level. Is that right?
Yeah, I played. Did I play? I played state 16s, I think.
Yep.
Progressed from there, and then got lucky. Got two great coaches in under-17s in Johnny Potter and Stritsky. Alex, I think
Alex,
it was.
Alex,
yep. Yeah, they were two my under-17 coaches, and they were great. And then I got lucky again. I had Mal Smith and Johnny Hall was the manager back in those days, and I was very lucky in my early years. I had great coaches and great managers.
There was also one other thing.
Was that Justin's dad?
Yes.
Yep.
Bart's dad.
Yep.
Palmy at Norwood High too broke the high jump record, and it was quite amusing because it basically became the only event still going on sports day. So he had the whole school barracking for him on the high. I think that record stood for about 15 years, Palmy. So that was something as well.
Yeah, and I did that, and like the Kingsley Garden goals, it stretched from 6'1" to about 6'9", I think, at the moment.
Yeah, I thought it might have been.
I would have won a few gold medals over the years.
Thought it might have been further than that by now, Palmy.
That's right. We've got time to stretch it out, and we can use this interview to stretch it a little bit further.
We may have allured to Palmy's parents earlier there, and Jim. There were no such things as roads in Jim's vernacular. It was always, now you went past the Feathers, turned at that corner, turned down, there was about there, the lights, you go there, you'll go past the Marrickville, keep going, the Robin Hood's on your right. That was Jim's whole language.
Wouldn't you love a Google Maps that did that?
Oh, he was pretty good Palmy, Mr. Palm in that regard. So.
Yeah, Dad was pretty good there. He gets to the pub pretty quickly, so he never lacked a partner or two either.
And looking on a serious note, we'll bring this up. We'll go back and forth on various bits, but David's youngest brother, was intellectual disabilities and side of things, and so the Palm and Ashwood family had a lot of things together. So David's dad, Jim, and my dad, Ray, were real good mates, and Lorraine and his mum and Margaret, good, and that. So we spent a lot of time together, and I've always said I really, obviously not appreciate just the friendship, but the time spent with Andrew back then was, I've always just grown up with it, and it was just normal part of things, and Andrew too. My mum was a bit of Andrew's hero. There was always playing 8-ball with my mum, and Andrew never lost a game of 8-ball. Good luck in that regard, wasn't it, Palmy? You never beat him.
Yeah. No, he could never win.
So there was things in too. So Dad and Jim had to fix the television, so it couldn't be moved, and things like that. Yep. So it was a part of life with Andrew, which I greatly appreciated more, and it was Rick Neagle actually picked it. With his son, and one night at Norwood at a meeting, and so I just always treated, and Neags actually even said, you've grown up around it, haven't you?
Yep.
So that's one thing with Andrew, and there's some big memories. He had a seizure in the water at Victor Harbour, and somehow my sister and I got him out of the water. I'm still buggered to this day how I did that, but Andrew was always a big part of life with the Palm and Ashwood families as well, Palmy.
Oh yeah, look, it's it's, Andrew's not the first, he won't be the last, but it was just an interesting when, you see your brother being born and everything seems normal, and then all of a sudden it's not, and then what your mum and dad go through by running the house, and then dad running his business, and then looking after my other brother and my other sister, and all through our schooling and our sporting achievements and everything else. Like my brother was pretty successful at footy as well, with Norwood and in the country, in the regional South Australia as well. So looking back on all that, you think, holy hell, how did they do it? And with not a lot of outside financial help or assistance, and like Malcolm's saying, we relied heavily on family, friends, and friends of them, and then all the acquaintances we met, and then totally understand that some people didn't get it, and some people did get it, and and totally understand where, one of those things, if you see, someone with a fairly significant birthmark on their face and they don't walk right and they don't talk right, well, and then they fall over and they have a seizure and people step away, I totally get that. But being on the inside of that, you had to deal with that on a daily basis like my mum and dad did every day.
And a credit to them, really. Back in the day, that there was no NDIS, there was no support services, and it sounds like they did a fantastic job.
They're both pretty bloody patient.
It was difficult, as I said. There was no outside help or anything else. So, they probably didn't get the credit they were due, both of them, in the end. But well, that was just it was their stunner with my brother, and we did the best we could.
Yep, with Jenny and Michael, and of course Jenny being a nurse, growing up doing nursing and that side of things as well. And Michael, Wally Miller, when I did interview Wally, his exact words were, Michael Palmer's the biggest one who got away. He's always out of that. And if things had worked out differently, David may have just ended up playing at Norwood and that side of things if Michael had hung around. If things, that was probably one goal in the back of my head and probably in the back of Dad's head. But, and even with me, like if I didn't, I shouldn't say it, but, look, if I played in 78. You should have.
I probably would have stayed. I probably wouldn't have left.
Yeah, but to your credit, you still hung around and played in 79. You didn't leave straight away.
I played in 79. So and then who knows? By moving over here, you look back, I probably would have never got to Richmond. So it works in funny ways, doesn't it?
So going back to your debut for Norwood against West Adelaide on, believe it or not, we're June 6th today, June 5th, 1976.
Oh, was it? Okay. Yeah, I remember playing on Robbie Donaldson on the wing there. Yeah. Remember the first game vividly. Yep. And I actually bought a picket all those years ago when the club were doing their
I did ring you on that one, Palmy. Yep.
Sponsorship there, and I'm glad, and I've seen it a couple of years ago. The picket's actually positioned right where my dad used to stand.
It is
on the
very
wing there.
It is very close to where Jim and Lorraine and Jenny and Michael used to sit. Very much so.
Yeah. So I don't think that wasn't conjured up. That was just pure luck. So, but it was. It was
stars aligned.
Yeah.
And what do you remember from your first game? Some highlights. Who were some of the players that you got to play with in that debut game?
Highlight was I survived, I suppose. In those days when you got dragged, you got dragged. Yeah. At least I played the game out. But, look, back in those days, and I rang Jim McLeany and congratulated him on his son who's playing great footy for Adelaide. But, Neil Button and Craigie and Gags and Stazzer, of course, Roger, of course, Black Duck was there. So, not a bad side either.
Very good side. So in 76, and one of your highlights of 76 was you played in the in the absolute cliffhanger game against Carlton when we only won by 106 points. What a night that was.
Only.
Yeah.
Great night, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, they were good. They were good days. They were great games, under lights there and Tuesday night, and sometimes you're freezing your nuts off. So, it was, a good atmosphere. So we won a couple of good games there.
So you played 22 games in 77 and as I said, you hung around in 79. You played 29 games, but the 1978 grand final, Palmy, and the way you bizarrely got told that you'd missed selection after playing well in the finals, especially against Glenelg, weird to say the least.
The mind still boggles.
Yeah, it does actually. Pete can see the look on my
I
face.
can see the look on your face. Exactly right.
Look, that's as I say, if it happened, great. If it didn't, I'm not the only bloke to.
No, and at least you did play in a premiership. At least you did play in a premiership side on the day too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The reserves. It was a double header. It was a great day. But it's Look, it's one of those things. Someone made a decision on what I'd done, but I played all the finals that year, so. Look, the way it was told and whatever, that's, unfortunately someone has to do it, and they did it, and whether they did it right or wrong, well, that's history. So, I don't bear any grudges with anyone.
At least you played and so it was quite funny. So was it your 21st, or certainly your birthday? Was it your 21st? Not that long afterwards, and so Norwood is celebrating both wins, and poor Jim Darrington's there, and he's done a hammy, so he hasn't played in the grand final, and Sturt have lost. It wasn't a great night for Darrow, that's for sure.
No, and it was like we played. As I say, we played at Norwood High together, and
yes,
he lived on one side of the parade and was bound to Sturt, and I lived on the other and was bound to Norwood. So, to miss out like he did, well, there's another sad story as well.
So you transferred to WA in 80 from in the bank. So that was the bank back then, wasn't it, Palmy?
Yeah, transferred in that. Well, it was sort of, I was coming in hurry. I just wanted to move. I just don't, the same people were there, and I just sort of needed a change. And at that stage, in my own mind, I thought I wasn't ready for the VFA type of competition. So it just sort of fell in the spot when Addo said he was heading back after his stint at Norwood.
Yep.
And I'd already had discussions with Claremont prior to that best and fairest night at Norwood, and I said, I'll see you back. I'll see you in Perth. And he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just about to sign with Claremont. So before he tried to put me in a headlock, he said, wait a minute. And he made a phone call to Len Roper, who was the president, and Ron Buick, who was Dad was father of Darren Buick, Corey Buick, who I played with. And they flew over to Adelaide, and we had a chat. And I just liked the run of it. What I heard, it seemed a little bit Norwoodish. They were red and blue, and Addo was going back there, and it sort of all just fitted into the right space. So that's what I decided to do.
What was it like moving states? Obviously, you grew up in Adelaide and got the opportunity to go to Perth. Culturally, was it a little bit of a step forward, step backwards, sidestep? What was it like living over in Perth?
Oh, it was totally different. Like I basically knew Addo. My dad knew a couple of people in business and whatever, but I wasn't going to a spot where you had immediate friends. It was that your friends and family became the footy club. So, but weather-wise, I remember my first pre-season trial game. It was 41 degrees, and a great player at West Perth called Alan Watling, he was all covered in sunscreen. I said, what the hell's going on? And I soon found out in the first 5 minutes why he was wearing sunscreen. So, fairly warm, and the ground's a little bit bigger than Norwood Oval.
Yep. A little bit harder, I'm assuming, as well.
just sand, but just huge. Like
Yep.
it just, doing a 400 around Leederville Oval compared to Norwood Oval, like it seemed an eternity. So yeah, just the size of the grounds are humongous. Yeah.
And you
Huge.
were coached at West Perth by Graham Campbell.
Yes, I was. Yep, in my first year.
What'd you think of Graham?
He was pretty full on, wasn't he? Lovely bloke, lovely bloke, lovely family, and but yeah, no, he was full on. He ate, drank. Well, he didn't drink, but he slept footy. Even when we go out for dinner on a Saturday night, after the game, he just keep talking about the day's game, whether we won or lost. So and then we'd front up again Sunday morning to do our run around the lake. So. No, all good intentions, good ideas. He got people on side, and it definitely played for him for sure.
And the highlight of your time in Western Australia, though, go through a West Perth blind date night, David.
Oh, perfect
West
match.
Perth what?
The West Perth blind date night. How you come on?
Yeah. I've been very lucky, and then
Yes.
as I said, I knew really no one coming over, and there was it turned out to be a good friend and a good mate was Ron Wilson, and Ronnie he put me up in his house. Didn't know me from a bar of soap. But had a spare room and whatever. So he looked after me in my initial year, and then he was going out with a lovely girl called Karen, and then one of her relations, named Michelle, who ended up being my wife.
Yeah.
I got invited around for dinner one night. So yeah, just started out there just as a come around, meet and greet, and then ended up you better stay with me. So here we are 38 years ago.
That's a fantastic story.
Yes. No, well, don't worry. We'll
cover that.
Some other palm female shenanigans will come out later. So, yes. So, from there, Palmy, WA, unfortunately not a great deal of final success at West Perth either, and then ending up being drafted by Richmond.
Yeah, no, we were stiff with under Graham, but you got to go back in those days, like Claremont, and this is where I look back and think, well, if I did go to Claremont, I don't think I would have really got a regular game like I did at West Perth. So, there was Graham Moss who was coach, there were the Crackers, there was Warren Ralph, there was John Annear, there was Ken Hunter, there was Wayne Blackwell, Shorty Daniels. Malaxos, Jesus. I'm thinking,
fair side.
It was a fair side. And then, you had, Swan Districts who were probably the other top side of the year. They'd Stan the Watney and Neesham and Boucher was the big Rutman, Fogarty. Solon that ended up going to Cullen. So there was some good players and good sides. So, you had to be, and we were unfortunately not up to it. But, in 82, when Dennis Cometti had us, we lost. We won the first semi against East Perth, and then we eventually got done in the prelim final to the eventual to winners. So, yeah, that was about the only glory we had when I came back.
Oh, you made the WA state side in 82, though. That's pretty big. And actually, I reckon you might have had a kick and a catch against MH on that day, too.
I think I did, yeah.
It might have been. Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah,
them,
no, it was. Yeah. No, it was 82, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was once again. I had a pretty good year under Dennis, and then got picked in the state squad, and then eventually made the team. So that started the process of people looking at you a little bit longer and harder from the east. And remembering in those days there was only 12 sides, and then in the draft situation there was only 24 picks. So you had to be, on the money, and the recruiters had to know what they're doing, because one mistake in it wasn't many left.
Well, in '82 in the VFL Interstate Draft, you were selected at number 11, but in your draft crop, you've got Alan Sidebottom, Gary Shaw, Braden Harper, Peter Motley, Keith Thomas, Brenton Phillips. Gary McIntosh actually had been drafted, but we know that he didn't take that. Grantley Filkey and Greg Anderson. I mean, gee whiz, it's a fair old class.
Well, it wasn't bad, yeah. So, and that's what I mean. Like in those days, and I think Craigie got picked up by Footscray and didn't go in the end either.
Yep.
So and clubs had to make that choice, and then if someone they selected and didn't go, well, it was basically a waste. So they didn't get any credits or get another pick for it. So, but no. So it was a good crop that year.
And then obviously, you've moved from Adelaide to WA, and there you've got to trek all the way across to Melbourne. What were your first thoughts when you arrived at Richmond?
Well, I'd gone from fairly warm conditions and prepared for 4 seasons in one day, as they say. So my dear old uncle, who used to live in Bendigo, was a Richmond supporter, and so that sort of kept that side of the family happy. But my first, crossing into Melbourne, because in those days the clubs didn't play their cards, so they didn't. Everyone was sort of hush hush. So there was no flying you over and having a look at the club and all this stuff like they do now. It was all I done over the phone, and are you interested? And this is what we're going to do, and you had to say yes or no. So I got picked up by Barry Rawlings, who was working for the club. He was a premiership player and captain at Hawthorn and Richmond. So that was my first introduction. He dropped us off at our hotel, Michelle and myself, and then next day was the tan run, the famous tan run.
Yep.
So got off the plane, and next afternoon at 5:00 I was running the tan.
At least you're an athlete, though, Palmer. You would have been okay still in that regard.
No, I hated it. I did my head.
You still would have been all right, though. You still would have done a reasonable time.
Okay. It was okay, but I know it's a mental thing. It really is. Yeah. And I remember one year, this was my first year, which was Francis Burke in '83, and it seemed to be everyone was doing it. Everyone was running the tan just to get the times and whatever. But I became very good mates with Greg Strawn, because he was full back and I was in the back pocket, and poor old Strawny, no disrespect, like he was probably the other side of 90 kilos, and he's trying to run the tan like all us little whippets were trying to do in a realistic time. But the poor bugger struggled. He did it 8 times that year. Because you weren't allowed to train unless you
did the time,
until you achieved your time. You weren't allowed in the main training group. You had to do extra.
Wow.
And I remember we were playing Hawthorn at Moe, which is fair distance east out of Melbourne, for a pre-season. And Strawny had to run the tan on the Saturday morning so that he could play against Hawthorn.
It's a fair warm-up.
So he did his time, because I was in the car with him. I went on the way down there. So he did his time. He's absolutely stuffed from doing the tan. And then he's got a front up in those days, which I think might have been Dunstall and Brereton and everyone else in a pre-season game.
Fair preparation.
Oh, wow.
So, no, they were the fun days for sure.
So out of this, Pete, in Palmy's time at Richmond, 83 to 88, they were very stable, the coaching ranks at Richmond. He only played under Francis Burke, Mike Swamp Fox Patterson, Paul Sproul, Tony Jewell and Kevin Bartlett. So it was certainly nice and set routine. Yeah,
it's a who's who.
So sounds a bit like what Carlton are going through now. Yeah, it was. Look, that was the interesting thing, because they lost the '82 flag against Carlton that year, and they were probably red hot to win it in '82.
I was there at that game,
and because that was my first game in '83, was the unfurling of the flag at Princes Park. It was known.
Yep.
So you've got all these Carl wankers in the stand and whatever, and unfurling the flag and singing the song, and then they did us in the end. And yeah, it was hard because Mickey Malthouse had left, Clokey had left, Jeff Rains had left, and Brian Wood.
Yeah.
So when you look back at 82 and you look at the grand final side, and then you're thinking, okay, well, shit, I'm lucky. In 6 months' time, I'm going to be playing with all these blokes, and then when you arrive, 3 of them are not there.
Yeah.
So, and then once you're in the joint, you find out a little bit inside information of what happened and da-da-da-da-da, and then we fall into the trap of, you're not successful, well, you're sacked. That has been, if you're a coach, you're out. And that was very testing times for the players because, Octa Wilson and dear old Graham Richmond in those days.
Yeah.
If you weren't successful, they found it pretty easy to get rid of you. So all those coaches over all those years, you had to sort of recharge again and go again with different personalities and everything else.
This is a good time to tell him that I'm a Carlton supporter.
That's all right.
It's all good.
Palmy will get stuck in you.
Absolutely.
I admit too, Palmy, though, like you played most of your footy at Norwood on a wing or half-forward flank. And I'll be watching a Richmond game and thinking, and you were playing mainly half-back, back pocket. I think, geez, for goodness sake, Richmond, you're struggling. You get Palmy forward. It didn't happen enough as far as I liked. And you did kick 5 in a game against Eston in 85 when they finally put you forward.
Yeah. Well, I did kick 5 that day. I think we only kicked about 10, but the problem was Essendon kicked about 25. So, you sort of always ask the question that, Norwood was a wing on half forward. West Perth, I was sort of centre ruck rover, half forward type of thing. So, Berkey started me off in the back pocket. I think, at that time was just to get in and find your rhythm and see how it all works without any pressure about being thrown in the middle. But we did have a fairly significant midfield in those days with Dale Waitman and who was the Bazza Rollings, of course, was in there. So, so that was probably great in my first year. But because I ended up playing I played all games in my first year.
In your first 3 years, you played all 22 every game.
Yeah. So I must have sucked up to the first 3 coaches pretty good. So that was sort of progression, where do they put you and that type of thing. So it was also relying on who they were recruiting because they went heavily recruiting at Collingwood there for a while and Hawthorn also. So, it was I was just happy to to keep getting a regular game, whether it was my spot or not. Well, there were plenty good players that played in the back line.
Can I throw a bar back? The win-loss record against Carlton was 2 wins for Palmy and 7 wins for Carlton.
Fucking Carlton.
Yeah,
I'm only joking, mate. It's all good.
No, they weren't glory days. They were definitely not glory days when I was I was there. So
So I also note that you only played 1 game at Junction Oval and then the rest obviously at the MCG.
Yeah. I think most of them were at the G, but we travelled. So, Arden Street and, Windy Hill and Moorabbin with, cold showers and mud from the sprinklers being on a Friday night before. We sort of got around, not like the under roofs now that they're accustomed to.
Now, obviously back in that era, Sydney, obviously at the SCG, West Coast at Subiaco and Carrara, Brisbane Bears back in the day. Playing and travelling was a whole new thing, wasn't it? Well,
people forget or they don't want to be reminded, but we actually had a day job in those days. So, we would work all the day and then we would religiously, train at 5 p.m. on a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, and then so to get off work, well, that sort of ate into your holiday leave or no pay with your employment, and then because you always used to go up the day before, especially up to Queensland and to Perth, we did. That was one of those things, and then you play in Perth like we did, I think, on the first day and on the plane, and the next day you're waking up going to work.
Pete, one of the favourite time with Palmy. The Palms had a holiday shack at Victor Harbour, so it was a traditional spot. And so David would, his time back. So he'd obviously be doing training stuff over that break. So I'd actually join him in doing some of the sand running and just someone to run with him a bit. I could run long distance stuff. I was hopeless trying to sprint, but I could do the long distance stuff. So did a bit with Palmy, and so David said one day, "Righto, I'm meeting up with Dale Waitman and Mark Lee. You want to come along?" So go along, obviously, and we walk into the Crown, and let's just say all the females there were very interested in Emily and Dee Palm. Dee Waitman's gone to me. Well, I think you're drinking with me, pal. So I ended up with Dale Waitman for a while. So and Dale does remember that, Palmy.
Flea's. I reckon I can tell the story. I reckon Flea's better.
Oh yeah, Flea's sensational. I agree with that. I've been to a couple of Richmond things with him comparing. He's very entertaining.
Yeah. No, it was good. I'm still good mates with Mark, and catch up with Dale when I can, and Greg Strawn and Emmett Dunn and Peter Williams and Bruce Tempney probably my closest. So we over all these years with family and all our kids are kept in contact, which is no matter where we are, which is good.
And then of course the other bit with Dale Waitman and Palmy, this isn't as structured as the written article on you, so we can let a bit more out on this side of things. Absolutely. And let's go through how the Aboriginal side, being nominated for the Richmond Aboriginal side, Palmy.
Well, it's once again, it is
bit of fun.
It revolves around a good bloke that's no longer with us, which is Morris Rioli.
Yep.
And senior. It all started because
David's suntans goes very dark.
Yes.
So keep going, Palmy.
They thought, and probably the sledging that I got over the years on the ground, that you would have thought I was Marlon Pickett, but I'm not, and I sort of have a lot of good mates, and so it just started there. That Flea said to Morris, Palmy is Aboriginal, and you got to pick him because they were short, and so Murray wasn't too sure, but he did. And that time there was Phil Egan there also.
Yep.
And so they named me. But the part that Flea doesn't tell you is that he had a financial interest in this All-Star game because he was organising the game to get up and all the merchandise. So he had sold tickets and everything else. So the game had to get up. And so he didn't care whether you and I'm not being racial and whatever, whether you're white and you put a little bit of black on or you were that for the day. He was happy. So that's sort of the guts of the story. But no, I didn't end up playing. I was named, but I never played. With no intention of playing.
I think an L Palm, a mother of, may have, and a wife, M Palm, may have
asked a few
gone,
questions.
Oh, David, yes.
Yeah. And it was interesting times because my wife's family was from Kalgoorlie, which is fairly a dominant population there as well. So sort of. They weren't frowned upon, but they thought, I didn't know David was. Well, So, So he had a little bit of explaining to do, little Flea, after that.
That's a fantastic story, mate. Thank you for sharing that one with us, for sure.
I wasn't going to let you off with that one, Palmy.
No.
Playing the VFA for Springvale, Palmy.
Yep. I 78. When was it? 80,
89.
88. Which was Bartlett's year. I just had enough. I just, the 6 year, even though I played 100 games, and they weren't. The club wasn't successful, and what was I? I don't know how old I was, but I just sort of had enough. And Emmett Dunn, who was reserves coach, and KB was coach, tried to say, look, go around again. But I just had enough. Anyway, I was going to head back to Adelaide actually,
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And then I actually met with Barmy and Wally in at the end of '88, and then I said, look, I'm just sounding you out. If you are interested, because it's dependent on getting a job that I'd applied for, and I won't know till a couple of months. And so they were pretty keen, and that was the guts of the conversation. That's where it started and ended. It was basically to me to decide if I got the job and that I was coming back, and then we go to the next step. So, which didn't eventuate. So I couldn't go back to Richmond after retiring and that type of thing, and I ended up going to Springvale, who was coached by Phil Malin.
Yep.
Who used to be at Woodville.
Yep.
And I played there that in '89 that year.
And
which is a pretty tough comp. It was a pretty tough comp in those days.
You talk about Wally Miller and Neil Baum, the usual suspects once again, Malcolm. We keep running across these guys who are just masters at their craft at getting players to the club.
Oh, look, I've said this before, but Wally is the best probably administrator going around in my time, and I'd been at three or four clubs. So even though in my first year he paid me $70 for a win, but that's probably what I was worth. But I mean nothing for a loss and nothing for reserves. Well, thanks, Wal. But no, he definitely had his heart in the right place and loved the club. He's the best in that position by a long mile.
And then you and Michelle decided to go back to WA in 1990, and you had a great year back at West Perth.
Yeah. I actually applied for a job. Springvale was never going to be the start of something else. It was just that because I was still working and had a day job, I had an opportunity to branch out in interstate with that job. So, which is what I did, and Perth was the option. So that kept Michelle happy, and we'd had two boys at that stage, James and Sam. So. That sort of all fitted in, and I didn't know in those days, but I basically deregistered, so I could have gone to any club, but that was never my intention. I just went straight back to West Perth.
Yep.
One of the old players I used to play with, George McCouchick, he was coach. So that was a pretty easy decision. I think I did that on the phone one day with him and just said, just let me know, and away we went, and it was all done. So.
And
I will tell you one story. I had a coffee a while ago with Dennis Cometti and a gentleman called Graham Playdell, who was the footy manager at West Perth. And when they'd done the deal to clear me to Richmond, Wally actually rang Graham Playdell wanting some money. Wanted some of the clearance money, I found out.
That's not surprising from Wally.
So, and Graham had great delight in telling him that David wasn't on a permit. You actually cleared him to West Perth, so he owed you nothing. So, Yeah, it was an interesting story all these years later.
Unusual for Wally to make a mistake just quietly.
He's a
That didn't
shrewd
happen very
operator,
often.
Wally. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, didn't happen very often.
Anyway.
And then, so you disappointed, though, West Perth didn't reappoint McCouchek for 92, mate.
Yeah. Like I came back in 90, and another reason which was a enticement, was another good mate I used to play with. It was Peter Managlio was the captain, and Manags would have made VFL in those days very easily, but it's like anything that didn't get the opportunity. But he's a legend of the West Perth. He's hitting in their team of the century and life member, and I think it was second week in, back in January training, he's come to training and said that he's retiring.
Yep.
So that was a bit of a blow. And then, George wanted me to be captain, and I've gone, nah, not being in the joint for 3 minutes. I said, nah, let's just take a couple of steps back here. So he appointed the vice captain to captain, and then I accepted the VC job for that year. I won the BNF that year.
Yep.
And then I had no problems in becoming the captain in 91.
Yeah.
But that didn't change our fortunes. We were still struggling, and the club sort of, and it was personnel, and it was a lot of things, but then they didn't renew George's contract during 91 for 92. So I said, I'll finish up as well, which is what I did.
And you've done a bit of coaching since then, coach Wongan Hills and West Perth Hellenics, and then involved with Corey Buick in coaching the West Perth under-16 development squad.
Yeah. I just went bush one year, and once again helping out another mate. He needed a hand, and Cameron Lewis, who used to play at Claremont, he was also coaching up there as well in the same side. So I did that for a year, and then and then helped out someone in D grade Amethyst side once again, who were struggling a bit and just needed just a couple of good players to get them up from where they were. We got ourselves in the grand final, but we lost the grand final. So, but that was where they hadn't been. So once again, I left them in a fairly good space to continue on, which is what they did. So and then we go back to sort of the under 14s, under 15, under 16s, little development squads back in those days, which every club had. And so I started with Corey Buick, whose son Rowan played at Brisbane, and his brother Darren played at Essendon, of course. We started that at West Perth, and we did that, I think, both of us for 8 years. So there was about 5 old players that we played together. That was our sort of coaching panel. We had our Johnny Gavinich, our ruckman, Peter Managlio was there, and Jeff Hendricks, whose son Liam's out playing baseball in the States and doing well. He was looking after the back line. So we had a good old crew, and we were all mates. And so we were just trying to find the next best players to come through. And Pete, we found one because we actually coached Stephen Brown, who you eventually picked up.
Isn't it amazing that those friendships with all our guests, have lasted a lifetime as well. So like what we do with all of our guests, we ask with the best players you've played with now. You've played at 3 different clubs, so we'll start off with Norwood. Who are the best players you played with at Norwood?
Oh God. It's
I can't help you if you need it.
No. It's hard because you got to remember I was 17 years of age, and so I looked up to all these players, and whether it was Windows or Woody or Ross Dillon, Craigie was just a fitness nut. Gags, drank and smoked, but he could run all day. Neil Barton was just a massive bloke in ruck, and then Stazzer at half time having a smoke, but he'd still keep up with all the full forwards. And it was to single one out I can't, but just naming those is probably the best.
On to West Perth now.
We have a thing here where we can't quite pick our favourite, so we always give 3 or 4, like a Mount Rushmore. So if you list 3 or 4, that's all good for us. We'll move on to West Perth.
Well, once again, when I first started there, the captain was probably the legend of the club called Les Fong. He was a fairly significant rover, best and fairest winner, played state footy. He held the club up for a long period of time. Peter Managi, I spoke about, very, how can you compare him to? Very skinny, 6 foot skinny, run all day, kick both feet, jump like a gazelle. And on WA grounds, like being hard and fast, he was pretty special. I love playing with Addo, what he did and whatever. And looking back, he probably pointed me in the direction that I started and I ended up. Played with both the Duckworths, like Johnny Duckworth, there's a McGarry medalist for you.
Yep.
So, had played golf with him actually a couple of weeks ago. So, he was pretty good. And Bill, of course, who's a legend at Essendon. And then, as I said, Corey Buick, we've become pretty good mates over the years through his father and whatever. So
on the West Perth side of things too, full credit to you that you've kept in contact with Brian Adamson with his health struggles and supporting Brian and that too. So credit to you there too, Palmy. Richmond side of things, mate. There's some characters there, but as I said, like General Lee, Strawny, Bruce Tempney, Roche, Flea, of course, and still catch up with the Ghosts when I can, Jimmy Jess, and Emmett Dunn and whatever, who was my reserves coach and played with him. We're still pretty close. So, and a good mate, Petey Willems, who was the president of the past players, who played a lot of seconds footy, but just missed out on some league games, special league games. So he's been a close friend and whatever for a long period of time. So not necessarily the best player, but just a good all round person. So who's over all these years stayed in touch. And you did play with a certain Kay Bartlett.
I was going to say,
he mightn't have been a great coach, but geez, he could play.
He lit up the G a few times.
I played his 400th. That was a great day. I think that was 89,000. I was against Collingwood. So, that was mad. That's and when you think of the old, Great Southern Standard, it wasn't as big as it is now, but that's a huge crowd.
Yeah.
And, you run out of that famous Richmond-Melbourne race, which is no longer there, which, it's probably just as good as running out of the old the parade race as well. That's a pretty special race, that one. So, yeah. And then hopefully they retain that.
Oh, I would hope so. Then we move on to your hardest opponents, mate.
I'd have to say
Michelle. Yep.
Hard tag, I would imagine.
No, that's no.
You're a bit slow there, Palmy.
That's a 3-week suspension. Look, Lee Matthews at Hawthorn, he gave me nightmares. Back in the 80s, it was either Hawthorn or Essendon were playing off in grand finals. Yeah. So, and being in the back line, well, guess where the ball was? Yeah. 95% down my end. So, he gave me a lesson a couple of times.
He would have given plenty as well. Don't worry about that.
Oh yeah, I know. Pretty good in those days. They weren't bad, those blokes at sledging and letting a few little
Backhanders.
Muhammad Ali little ones go either. So, they always put me on Mickey Conlon at Fitzroy when we played Fitzroy. So, and I don't know whether it was just a pace thing that, you know, I could at least keep up with him, but he was a mountain of a man. So, yeah, we always had a good battle there. Gary Ablett Senior. He's another one that gave me nightmares. I remember one day at the G, I think Julie was coaching. We played Geelong at the G, and Strawny was on him, and he's kicked. He's at the start of the game. He's kicked 7 in the first half. So he's about ripping his hair out, and we're getting flogged. We're getting done. And so halftime meeting in the room, Tony Jewell comes up and we look at the board, and there I am. I'm at fullback on Ablett. I'm going, holy shit, this is going to be an interesting second half. Anyway, he kicked 4 on me. He ended up with 11. I think he did that on numerous occasions against us too. But yeah, no, he is the best Ablett. Don't worry about that.
Some fair opponents there. Matthews, Hawker, Conlon and Ablett Senior. Holy moly.
Ablett had a bit of height on you too, Palmy.
Yeah. No, but he was tall, he was strong, he was quick, and he was both sides. And yeah, he's the best Ablett by a mile. And then they always used to put me on Glenn Hawker at Essendon. So we had some good touch-up battles there. So, yeah.
And you've mainly worked in the sporting game, Palmy, after the bank side of things, and moved around and held various spots there, mate.
Yeah. No, I once again was lucky to get a position in Melbourne that led to my move to WA. So I've been in the sporting wholesale game. It's about 35 years now. So, so that's sort of been good and worked itself along with it with the footy as well.
Did I read somewhere that you had the distributing rights for Wilson and Deodora at one stage?
I was a sales rep in Melbourne for Wilson and Deodora when I first when was it 85 I think. I got appointed there, so I was just a sales rep, and Paul Roos was the other rep for the same company called Active Leisure, and so Roosie did the Horsham run and I did the river run, and so we always had lunch together on a Friday, except when Fitzroy played Richmond the next day, we didn't.
It was a long lunch, yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of my association within the sporting. That's where it started, and then I sort of branched out from there and did my own thing when I shifted to Perth.
Palmy, look, greatly appreciated. The Ashwood Palm friendship goes back a long way. I'll catch up with Jenny probably more than anyone else nowadays side of things, and greatly appreciate your support over the years. Apart from that day you put a hole in my cricket bat. And Michael should have bloody played league football. And, been through a lot. We didn't cover, you also motor neuron and that. Jim passed away sadly with motor neuron. So, there's been plenty of things and over the years, Palmy. Greatly appreciated, mate.
Thanks for having me. I love the chat. Thank you.
Thank you,
both.
Say hello to Michelle for me, please. Yeah,
I will.
Thank you for letting me in with the Ashwood Palm connection, but also our listeners as well. And, I've thoroughly enjoyed hearing the stories, and I'm sure we could probably go on for another hour with some of these stories. But no, we greatly appreciate you taking time out, obviously over in Perth at the moment. And thank you once again.
Okay, beautiful. Stay safe, and thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Palmy. Thanks, mate.
Happy days.
All right, mate, we move on to happy days. Happy birthday to one of your favourite players and a player that's starting to really come into his own, and that's Jason Horne-Francis of Port Adelaide, 19 years of age, taken with pick 1 in the 2021 draft, AFL draft. Jason has some serious talent, playing every game this year for Port Adelaide after being traded by North Melbourne at the end of last season. Contracted now until 2028, and I think Port are on. They've got a ripper here, haven't they?
They've got a steal for mine. I thought that at the time. That pick-up against Western Bulldogs.
Oh, no one wanted to go near him, but it was just class, wasn't it?
Pace.
Do you know who it reminded me of? Nathan Buckley.
Yeah, there was a bit there. There's no doubt about that. There are some similarities. Look, I'm happy to predict that he'll be the man of September. Just the weather to come. Look, he's a gun, and
for such a young player in his second year,
and the crap he's caught.
Absolutely.
Look, he's a gun.
I have to agree with you, mate. I was a little surprised that North Melbourne let him go for what they did.
Yeah, they got Sheasel out of it. And he's a good player.
Yes,
and I think he's going to be a very good player. But this kid is special.
When you talk about generational players at clubs, and we talk about Brisbane's Fab Four and Richmond's Fab Four, and all these players, he is slotted into Port Adelaide's Fab Four with ease, and he's not having to take their best midfielder. He's not having to do massive things, but when he is doing them, he's doing them very, very well. And he also reminds me a little bit of Viney from Melbourne.
Oh, it's just his pace, and those three to have Rosie and Butters. It's their dynamics different than any other midfield in that way. So
if you're Kenny, why wouldn't you want to hang around to see the end of this? Because it could. The fruits of his labour could be laid bare in the next 2 or 3 years, and Port Adelaide could really, set the world alight with these guys.
I'm happy also to go out on a limb. Gold Coast having Rowland Anderson, from their academy this year. They will pick up Walter, a key centre half forward, and Sanders another midfielder. Wow, watch this kid go. Absolutely.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that one with interest. All right, mate, we move on to cricket. In 1979, World Cup cricket, Lords, London, man of the match, Viv Richards scores 138 as not out as defending champions. The West Indies beat England by 92 runs, and Joel Garner with 5 for 38.
Joel Garner, the king of the Grenfell Tavern, the year when he played here in Adelaide. Let's just say that he had just as good a strike rate on and off the ground. He was entertaining to see the least, the big bird. Viv, just class.
138 not out.
Smash him. And his record in World Cup finals for West Indies, he's run outs as well in the field. He's a gun.
Absolutely. Well,
superstar.
And West Indies were definitely on the top of their game in the 70s and late 70s, early 80s, and a little bit into the 90s as well.
Sadly, it looks like those days are never going to come back.
It does a little bit, but you know what? Things come in roundabouts, and that could change. So they might unearth a couple of gems, and we'll see how we go. All right, in 1991, racing, mate. Mazda becomes the first Japanese car to capture the Le Mans 24-hour race.
Yeah, it's interesting, just something out of the ordinary, as you like to find.
I
Pete.
do like to find, yes.
And
keeps me busy.
Yeah, no, great record there. Great effort by Mazda, and probably something that you can always hang your hat on that one. Let's just say there are going to be a lot of backslapping behind the scenes, and that's something we've got on our tick
on
forever,
the old bucket list that we've achieved. Yeah, absolutely, I agree. All right, mate, we move on to 2003. Baseball, Barry Bonds steals second base against the LA Dodgers, becoming the first player in MLB history to have 500 career home runs and 500 steals.
It's incredible the recorded steal bases that often. It's an amazing stat. The home runs are sensational, but it's the stolen bases which hits it.
Absolutely. Well,
it's incredible.
The big thing, like we have talked about previously, that if you're hitting 3 out of 10, you're a legend of the game. 4 out of 10, exactly. 3 out of 10. You're a very, very good baseball player, but he can't steal those bases if he's not on base.
Oh.
And baseball teams or baseball clubs, they rate very highly that if you get on base, you're a chance to score and win games. And for him to not only hit 500 home runs, not only get on base, but then start stealing bases. Wow, that's a huge statistic, and that's why he'll go down as one of the all-time greats, Barry Bonds.
Oh, no, he's a legend at baseball. Yeah.
And just on that with stealing bases, that has come back into vogue a little bit with the pitch clock coming into baseball this year. Obviously, it gives more opportunity for players to be a little bit more aggressive, and stealing bases is coming back into vogue. So very, very interesting.
Yep, no, it's a great one to have found. Well played, Pete.
Thank you, mate. We move on to our last one for the happy days. 2019, Ash Barty becomes the first Australian female player in 42 years since Yvonne Goolagong-Cawley to attain the world number 1 ranking as she beats Julia Georges 6-3-7-5 at the Birmingham Classic.
And let's not forget too, Ash Barty walked away from tennis, went and played cricket, played for the Brisbane Heat and the Big Bash.
Absolutely.
And then came back. So obviously, once you've come back, you're starting from a pretty low rung to go through to be number 1. Look, incredible, Ash. And look, congratulations making her own call, going out on her own terms,
Absolutely.
and all that. But I reckon we would have loved to have enjoyed it
another couple of years.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Purely as a sporting nut.
Absolutely. You're right. Touted as a fantastic junior, played some very, very good tennis in her early years. Walked away from the game, went and played a completely different sport, as you said, playing cricket of all things.
Yeah.
Was very successful at the cricket as well. Brisbane Heat regarded her as a very, very good player. Was missing it a little bit. Almost came back to the sport with a nothing to lose attitude, and boy, did it pay dividends for her. And really just went out there and played for the enjoyment. And like you said, walking away at the time, but to reach number 1 in your chosen sport, and to do it after you'd walked away from the sport, I think there's something to be said about that. Her timing was fantastic, wasn't it?
Such a touch of class too, as a person, and really always been pretty balanced about life, and the bit of enjoyment of enjoying Richmond going top, and the thing on her sculling a beer. Hey, there's a bit of normality about her as well.
She grew up a little bit, didn't she? She sort of was thrusted as a junior into the spotlight, and there was a bit of pressure on women's tennis at that stage, and she was the gun player. And like you said, the little bit of normality is actually what has helped propel her to the status that she is right now.
Oh, look, and I think too, as we said, a balance of realising that, hey, yeah, I'm winning, but it's not the be-all and end-all.
There's more to life.
And, just nailed it. So
absolutely. No. All right, we'll finish on that one, and we'll scoot into the big finish.
Extra time. Big finish.
All right, some apologies for our netball listeners. Last week we had them in the finals. We had them playing teams in the finals.
We were a week early.
We were a couple of weeks early on that one, but now we are up to the finals. The Thunderbirds, congratulations on making the finals for the first time in, I think it was about 10 years, I heard.
We were just the Nostradamuses of it. I think we should be more congratulated.
We were. Pats on the back for that one there. They continue their winning way, winning the final round of the Super League season there, and it secured them a double chance.
And play New South Wales Swifts in the semi, so huge game.
Anything can happen.
And all the best.
Exactly right. Bit of Nostradamus again. They play the Swifts, who they beat in the final round to obviously get them the double chance. Are they a chance to go back-to-back on that win?
We can only hope.
Oh, absolutely. We want that trophy back here in SA. We've been craving one for a few months now, and we've hung our hat on the cricketers of Carey and Travis Head doing their bit for SA
and the lady cricket
and
side.
The lady cricket side. The Adelaide Strikers winning their final as well. So this will be another trophy to add to the cabinet of 2023. It'd be fantastic.
Hopefully.
All right, mate. We like we've done over the last couple of weeks. We've had a bit of fun with the AFL with the trade, re-sign, retire. I've got 3 very interesting cats here on my list: Max Gawn, Mason Cox, and Scotty Lysett.
Well, I'm not retiring any of them, and probably the interesting one I think was Scott Lysett 5 or 6 weeks ago. Yeah, you were looking and going, hey, he's struggling, got dropped to the SANFL, but he's come back with a kabang, and has been fantastic,
and has really helped propel them.
Yeah, so. And that, look, Max Gawn's class, obviously you re-signed there. That's
yes.
the thing. And Mason Cox has done his job for Collingwood, and coming back now from injury as well. So, I'd be surprised if all those 3 aren't well and truly on an AFL list next year.
We've got to pick one, though. Who are you trading, who are you resigning, and who are you retiring?
Well, I'm re-signing Max Gawn.
Yep.
Oh, look, just a bit of fun to retire someone from Port Adelaide. Scott Lycett.
Yep.
And Mason Cox, he can get traded to the American Super Bowl there.
Absolutely. Mate. All right. Well, I'm going to go re-sign Max Gawn, retire Mason Cox, and trade Scotty Lycett. There you go. All right, a bit of fun. The NBA Finals, we were in the midst of last episode when that was going on. It was 1-1 at the time. And then as predicted, as I thought would happen, and I think most people would happen, the Denver Nuggets went bang, 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 and they win the series 4-1.
Yeah, just in the end.
Class.
Yeah, and 4-1 comprehensive in the – it's unusual, as we know, in the – it normally goes down to the sixth or seventh, so
it does.
Comprehensive.
Obviously, Game 1, Denver defeat Miami 104-93. Game 2, the Heat come back 111-108, so pretty close. And then Denver, 109 to 94 in Game 3, 108-95 in Game 4, and then obviously winning 94-89 in Game 5. And you're right, it was very much a dominant season, and really, Denver winning like they did really puts them at the top of the tree, and they won as they were expected to win.
Yep. No.
All right, we move on. Absolutely. We move on to tennis, and actually going back to the basketball. No rest for the wicked. A bit like the AFL. The NBA draft starts in a week's time, so it'll be interesting to see. There's a couple of very interesting draft picks, but we'll talk about that a bit later. We move on to tennis. The warm up for Wimbledon. Aussie Jordan Thompson makes the final in the Netherlands. He was up a set early on.
Good effort, and he keeps being a bit of a contributor. Jordan, gets around the mark in the odd tournament here and there, and it's not easy when you're not the big name to make your living in that regard. So look, all the best to him at Wimbledon. Absolutely.
All right, we move on to a couple of the lead up tournaments. Obviously, the big one. Is at Halle, Birmingham as well. It's going to be very interesting. And some early tips on Wimbledon men's and women's winners.
I know it's a bit boring, but you can't go past Djokovic.
Yep.
And the women's side of things,
it's a bit open, but you'd have to say Swiatek is in form. She is the number one player in the world.
Yeah.
Can we see any Australians going deep at Wimbledon this year? No Kyrgios or... No. Kyrgios has basically said that, mentally he's not quite ready to come back yet. Very, very interesting. All right, mate, and a new subject that I thought I'd throw in here for our big finish. The good, the bad, the ugly. Some sporting moments over the last week or so, or weekend. Any good moments that jump out at you?
I'll go Joe Root congratulating Khawaja while Robinson was the other way. Just a really... It was just dumb.
Yep.
It's not terrible. It's just dumb.
Yep.
And look, he's got a record too. Let's not forget he's been suspended for a couple of months on racism sort of stuff before. So it's just it was just bizarre. You're watching going, hey mate, pull your head in. The guy's got 140. You haven't got him out first ball.
Yep.
It was just that
ridiculous. Was probably my ugly.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous.
Yep. And any good moments that you can think of over the last couple of weeks?
Oh, look, I think with that, even Steve Smith running to congratulate Joe Root as well.
Yep.
I just think that's just a bit of common sense. And how cricket, try not to blow his block off, but then he's won that duel. Well done.
Yep.
Well played. It's not that hard. It's not
sportsmanship's huge. My good, my bad, my ugly. My good is probably the Thunderbirds. Their result, making the finals after sort of 10 years of fighting. They've done well. My bad is probably we still haven't quite got the AFL tackle and suspension, and we haven't quite got that matrix right yet.
It's still up in the air.
It is, yes.
Look, I still say it's not whether we like it or not. And there's Michael Christian doing his job, and the clubs keep opposing it and fighting. And I'll give Richmond for mine the dumb thing for the week as well.
Mm-hmm.
Why they fought Mansell's suspension he chose to bump.
Yep.
He's got ace in the head.
Yep.
He's got concussed. And they try, oh no, he got his shoulder. Well, no, he actually got hit in the chin.
Yep.
And trust me, he got hit in the chin.
Yep.
And for mine, you appeal, you lose that. you appeal again. Bring back this thing where you get an extra game and clubs might pull their head in.
Absolutely. And then my uglies, I've got two uglies. One was, like you said, the cricket where, they're going off their rocker after Khawaja makes 141, and it was a weird field as well. But the other ugly is probably West Coast at the moment. The ugly look of Adam Simpson in the box there after the Adelaide or during the Adelaide game, looking just so dejected. And, really, we're much better at talking about mental health. And, here's a guy who's just watching his team get absolutely belted, and he can't do anything about it.
Just
and
not even
lost.
remotely competitive.
He just looks lost.
Yeah, he looks forlorn, doesn't he?
And that's probably my ugly at the moment.
And look, the good, Liam Robinson's goal, winning Norwood the game, and effectively retaining the Gallagher Williams Cup. I'll go for that one.
We could do the good, the bad, the ugly for another hour on on just the Norwood winning, but no, we won't bore you with that as well. All right, mate. Huge episode again. We've been able to do a couple of interviews, like we mentioned before I left. So we're going to add those interviews over the next week or so as part of our Past Players, Past Legends segment. We're also going to try to get a couple of local legends on, obviously from the SANFLW grand final winning team. We'll sort of work on that one a little bit, and also our interview with Timmy G. Part 2 we will release probably next Tuesday as part of our flashbacks episode. It'll be a special episode because we did end up spending another hour and a half with Timmy as well, so we didn't want to add it to these normal episodes and have you basically listening to us for 3 hours.
Yeah. Look, and Timmy G's just great. So when you post something and it's not only a thoughtful response, it's never boring. It's not a repetitive stuff and that. He's a natural speaker. He was funny, engaging.
Absolutely.
And we've got his wife's phone number.
Happy days for you, mate. We thank David Palm for his time. Yes. Obviously, Ross Dillon as part of that intro as well. And obviously, Timmy G. And Stephen Patterson, which we've also had on as well as part of our winter series while I was away as well. So we thank all of those guys. And as per usual, mate, we promise to do better next week.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.